Hey there Facebook, Vanessa here, a motivational speaker and head coach at Live, Love, Give, and I'm excited to bring this message to you today. As always, this is the highlight of my day at the moment, is bringing these Facebook Live messages to you guys, and today's message is all about fear. And I wanted to bring this message because I've been getting a lot of questions regarding fears and not being good enough. And I think so many of us, we know the idea of, fears limiting us, but we don't always know what fear is. And I really believe that any sort of transformation or breakthrough starts with having that awareness around what we're talking about. Hey George, hey Maritesh, awesome to have you guys here. Thank you for joining. And okay, so let's get into it. So there's two different varieties of fears. Okay, and the most amazing thing, I was at a Tony Robbins event, and I know I mention Tony Robbins like all the time because he's been such a transformational coach for me. And we were at this Tony Robbins event, and he actually spoke into our deepest fears. And what I love about Tony's work and the work of so many people in this industry is that we want to show our similarities and focus on our similarities. And so many of us, we think we're so individual to everybody else that we struggle with, we're the only people who struggle with the things that we do, and we feel often so alone with that. And this is why it's so powerful, this message, because every single human being walking the face of this planet has fears. And it's not just fears, it's actually what we call the deepest fears. So below all of the surface fears, which are fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of not being special enough, or whatever it is, whatever those fears are, fear of success, fear of judgment, name any sort of fear that you've felt yourself, or you've heard of. And I guarantee it actually stems from something much, much deeper. And we can get so overwhelmed by all of these different fears that we think we have. But ultimately, it comes down to there's two deepest fears that every single one of us has, and it dictates how those other surface level fears show up for us. Judy, nice to have you, and Alex, it's awesome to have you here, and Stacy, nice to have you here. So the two deepest fears that every single one of us has is, firstly, the fear of not being good enough. Every one of us, we all have that fear of not being good enough, not being smart enough, not being pretty enough, not being successful enough, not being whatever enough, thin enough, muscular enough, like whatever it is. We come up with all of these reasons and these fears around not being good enough. And what is really underneath that deepest fear, the fear of not being lovable. And if it's to have you, and love you too, Stacey. Thank you so much. And so if you really think about it, think about back when we were babies. We were just born. If our mother didn't love us, it meant death. So love, it was survival for us. But we still hold on to that survival meaning around love. We have this subconscious feeling that if we are not loved, we'll die. It's that ingrained into our survival. And so ultimately, that's why we all have that fear of not being good enough. What if I'm not good enough? What if I'm not loved? And our mother, she loved us in that beginning of time. And our human bodies are biologically made up, particularly the mothers, to have an enormous amount of oxytocin when she is first having her child. And that is the love hormone. That is the ugliest child. The mum just sees just beauty and just cuteness and gorgeousness. Like, there is nothing, it's unshakable, that love, that connection. But over time, you start developing, you start growing up, there starts to be more expectations on you as a little growing human being. And you start to recognize that, hey, that wasn't good enough how I behaved over here. Or, I can sense that that's the thing that, people love. So I'm going to start being that, because that's where that feeling of not being good enough, starts to be generated from. Nice to have you, Hassan and Andrew. Thank you for joining. And so that's those deepest fears. So underlying, People come all the time and they say, you know, I'm so stressed, I'm so overwhelmed. But ultimately, you know, I love that, you know, the word stress, Tony Robbins says, is ultimately the achiever's word for fear. And it's so true, because if you really think about all of those things that we're fearful of, and you get that level of consciousness to recognize that actually what's behind that fear, the real reason why you're fearful of being rejected or public speaking or whatever it is, it's because you feel like you're not going to be good enough, and therefore you're not going to be loved. So it starts with that awareness around what our fears are. And once we get that awareness, that's empowerment. When we're aware, we can make changes. We can change our belief system. We have something to work with. But so many of us are too scared to face our fears. We can't get there. Like we're much too scared to own that, to acknowledge that, even to ourselves. So we stay stuck. But if you're somebody who's listening to a message like this, hey Michael, hey Ty, thank you son, you too. And if you're somebody who's listening to a message like this, I already know that you are somebody who wants to grow. You have that inner knowing that there's got to be something more in this life, and you know you've got more to give and more to grow, and you want to reach your highest potential. So you're already set up to win, you know, to break through those fears. And I've said in the title of this one to follow your fears, because most people run away. They run in the opposite direction of their fears, and they put their head in the sand. And you know what? All that does is keep you stuck, and it diminishes your self-belief, your confidence. You start not trusting yourself, because you're not giving yourself an opportunity to break through and trust that you can handle it. So to follow your fears, I always say this because I actually believe that our fears shine light on the things that most matter to us as individuals. And I believe that there is so much value to be found when we follow our fears and we face them. And not just face them to just acknowledge and break through, but actually learn more about ourselves and learn more about the ways that we want to step up and we want to grow as individuals. And awesome to have you, Bill. Nice to see you. And Jonathan and Penjack and Eric, nice to have you back again. Awesome to see you guys. Leave your comments, your questions. I've actually got a bunch of questions that came through, so I'll try and get through as many of them as possible today, but I don't want to go too far over time. And awesome to have you, Choppy. Yeah, it's been so long, I don't even remember the last time I saw you. All right, Michael, do you work with published authors? I asked since my book is on law of attraction tied with personal events and breaking through. Okay, so do you work with published authors? Okay, that's awesome, Michael. I'd love to check out your books and personal events, breaking through. Yep, okay, I'm not quite sure. I don't really work with anybody in particular. I work with anybody who just wants to break through, who wants to step up, to own who they really are, what they really want, and break through with courage and create the life of their dreams. So, yeah, let me know if I didn't quite get that right, Michael. If you're asking me another question, I'd love that. And don't be fearful on past experiences. Yes, definitely. And that's what I spoke into yesterday, all about not getting trapped in your past. So powerful. And there's so many lessons to be learnt there. Awesome to have you, Steve. Thank you for joining. And yeah, leave any more comments there or questions. And I will get to those. I'm just going to actually get back to these questions that came through, because I love that you guys have been connecting with me, and it's been so awesome getting to jump on some calls with you guys and meet you face to face. I've absolutely loved that, so keep doing that. I've loved it. Thank you. And okay, so a question came through. This is a great question from John, who asked, he said, I want to know how to gain the objectivity and separate yourself from your fears so they no longer control you, and so you can overcome them and learn from them. Awesome, really great question. So I really wanted to address this on the live video. And thank you, John, if you're watching, or if you watch this later, I appreciate this question. So in order to separate yourself from fear, you need to recognize that fear is actually non-existent. And what I mean by that is it's mind-made. It's not a reality. Fear, oh, there was a phenomenal, I'm going to link it up for you guys when I get off this, but there was a phenomenal video that Will Smith did on this. And yeah, it just so made the point so clear about how fear is just so in our heads. You know, it's like I spoke into yesterday, it's either about going back into your past and projecting some sort of past negative experience that's been and gone, it's no longer existent now, into your current moment, or you're projecting into your future and you're perceiving that you're going to have some sort of negative experience which you don't actually know. It doesn't exist. So firstly, it starts with, you can separate yourself from the fear by recognizing that it's all in your head and you have control and power over that, as long as you can acknowledge that and start witnessing how it enters your body. You know, do you start feeling a bit anxious? How you've got to start building that inner consciousness around how your fears come up. And it takes time, but you've got to start checking in with your physiology, check in with your body, understand how fear shows up for you. And then when you build that consciousness, you can recognize what triggered that. What was that thing that triggered that? And then you can start seeing how you're making meanings. You know, fear comes from what we've chosen to focus on, and it comes from the meanings that we create. So you can focus on the good or you can focus on the bad. Whatever you choose to focus on is going to generate those feelings, that physiology and that fear, or it's going to do the opposite and it's going to put you in a more empowered state. You know, and if you focus on the things that you can't control and what's missing in your life, you're going to have a lot of fear. But if you change that around and you start to focus on the things that you can control, which is always what you make things mean and the actions that you take, and you focus on everything that you do have in your life and you create a sense of gratitude, you overcome fear. And as again Tony Robbins would say, is that gratitude is the antidote to fear. So I would say that if you find yourself in that fearful state, the best thing you can do is find the things that you can be grateful for in your life right now. And it's going to be challenging because most of us like to stay stuck in our fears. As weird as that sounds, that's what we do. So it gives us this level of certainty, and it's a very subconscious thing that's, you know, it's pretty in depth, you know, really thinking into that. But once we start to build that self-awareness around what's going on for us and recognizing that it's all mind-made and that we have the power to transform that, and definitely, you know, I think John said something about learning the lesson, you know, well, learning those lessons, I believe, come best when we're reflecting on those times when we've been in fear. And when we learn those lessons about what was coming up for us, what was triggering us, we can actually learn that lesson, take it in with us, so that when we are identifying that fear coming up for us, we can see that there's a pattern here, and the pattern is mind-made. So I hope that that has helped. John, thank you. And Yvette, nice to have you here. And Tracy and Adiniran, I didn't get that name right. Adin Iran, I think. I love these great names. Some of you guys have got like these names that I've never heard of before. So yeah, sorry if I can't say them very well. And if you guys have, thank you so much, Yvette. I'm really happy that this has been valuable for you. And guys, drop your questions. I hope I don't, I can scroll. Okay, fear does not exist. Yes, you're right. Ty, I'm so grateful that this is really helpful for you. You guys are my fuel. You are the reason why I do what I do, and you've become one of the highlights in my days. So I really appreciate you giving me that feedback, and yeah, that's awesome. And Eric, yes, thank you, Vanessa, to remind me. I appreciate it a lot because I'm on my way to change for a better me. Awesome. I love that about you, Eric, and I appreciate you being here. It's awesome to have built this connection with you guys, so I love that. And again, drop any questions that you guys have today. I've got another question here that came through from Julie just before I got on this Facebook Live today, and it was so in alignment with what I wanted to discuss today. So I thought, yeah, definitely got to do this one. And Julie says, I have the same issues that seem to relate all to not feeling good enough. How can I improve this? Okay, now this is a great one. And as I just said earlier, that, you know, that feeling of not being good enough, we all have it. It is that deepest fear which is connected to not being lovable. And therefore we're always trying to seek that love by being whatever good enough it is to us, you know, like smart enough, helpful enough, pretty enough, you know, strong enough, whatever it is for you, and identifying what that is, that not good enough. What is that for you? And we all have multiple ones of them, right? But recognize that every single one of us have them. You're not alone. There is nothing defect about you. You know, there is nothing wrong with you. We are all in the same boat together. Even the greatest, you know, most inspirational people out there, they all battle with fear. But some of them just have better tools now. They've had to learn the tools to deal with this stuff. So how you can improve this, Julie, and thank you for this question, because it's a powerful one that so many of us struggle with. So I appreciate that, because it's helpful. When you guys ask questions, it's going to be really helpful for everybody else. So Julie, how you can improve this feeling of good enough, you've got to start recognizing where you are seeking that validation from external sources. So whether that be from the people around you, from your loved ones, family, friends, your work environment, is it getting another PhD? Is it, you know, doing that next degree? Is it, you know, something, I don't know, whatever it is, getting that new car, getting that new house, I don't know. Every one of us is trying to seek some sort of validation. When we're feeling not good enough, it's because we're focused on the external to let us know whether we have value. So the best thing, and I'm not saying it's easy, but really ultimately, if you don't believe that you are good enough, that you are of value, and that you are worthy, you're constantly going to be seeking that validation to tell you that you're good enough in the external environment. And it's all behavioral, you know, and ultimately, you know, that's not love. That's not validation. That's so conditional to seek that validation based on how you show up in the world rather than for who you really are. And most of us, when we're stuck in that feeling of not being good enough, we don't even share who we really are because we don't love who we really are. And we feel like if we share what we don't love, then other people aren't going to love us. And therefore, you know, we're back into that deep-seated fear. So, Julie, I would say that you need to work on the relationship with self, like all of us do. And I would love to help you with that if you want to jump on a 15-minute power session with me. And I'll help to see as an individual, what is that major roadblock for you? So I'll link that up. Anybody who wants to jump on one of them, I'm opening up some more. Because I love getting to connect and meet you face to face and help you with that. Awesome to have you, Jose and Frederick and Jay. Awesome. And from Colombia, Jose, thank you. Oh, I love having you here. That's awesome. And okay, let me just scroll here and see. Thank you, Vanessa. You remind me, appreciate it a lot. I'm on my way to, yeah, I read that. Okay. Awesome. Okay, thank you so much. And yeah, like I said, drop any questions that you have right now. I'd love to hit you with those right now. I hope that answer was valuable to you guys and to Julie. Thank you so much for asking it. And another question I got was from Justina in regards to, hey Sarah, in regards to saying that she was struggling with meditations, kind of finding it hard to just sit still without kind of falling asleep with a meditation, and she wanted to know some advice with that. And you know, it's meditation has been something that I've been working on for probably about the last 3 years, and it might be a little bit longer than that, but ultimately I'm somebody who finds it really hard to sit still and just quiet the mind. I'm always on the go. So I feel where you're coming from there, Justina. And you know, for me, it started with having an application that I downloaded, which was called Headspace. And it's phenomenal for first-time users if you just want to learn the techniques. And I love that system that they take you through. You can do 10 days of free 10-minute meditations where they guide you through these meditations, and it's phenomenal for beginners. I absolutely love that app. But I've actually come across a better one for me right now, and it's called the Daily Calm. And I like it because you can listen to beautiful music in the background, whereas Headspace, it's just silent and there's some guidance. But you know, if you prefer that, that's great. And you can do that with the Daily Calm app as well. But I really enjoy just some tranquil, beautiful music, and I can change it up. And what I really love about them is that they keep me so on track, because they not only help introduce you to a meditation, but it's different every single day. And what I like about it, it's a huge community, so we're kind of all listening to it together. And also at the end of these meditations, she actually gives you this like really inspirational little message, this thought of the day to listen to, and a quote. So I really love that. I love, you know, the added little benefits of that. And I would say jump on the Daily Calm and start with just 10-minute daily meditations. They're kind of entertaining, so it's not so much you know, they're great for starting that meditation practice and starting to feel the benefits of it. So I hope that was valuable to you guys out there. Hey Miron and Agus, nice to have you guys on here. And like I said, drop any questions that you guys have for me right now. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep chugging through some of these questions, and I have no idea how long I'm taking, but let me know if I'm going on a bit. Whoa, nearly got swooped. All right. Okay, so the next one I have here is, okay, so Champ asked me, how can I love everyone around me, including the negative and the bad people? Whew, deep question. I like this one. And I appreciate you asking that, Champ. Thank you. Okay, so how do you love everybody equally is what I'm getting from that question. Not just the people who, you know, are quote unquote worthy of your love or doing the right thing, or, you know, you focus, you know, a way of operating. It's really difficult to love everybody, particularly in our society where there is good and bad and black and white and victim and perpetrator, and, you know, there's always got to be somebody to blame. And we take our love away from those people because we as a society are so behavior, and it can get Hey guys, sorry that just cut out for a minute. I hope that you guys are still on here with me. And yeah, so I was going back to Champ's question just in regards to how do you love the negative people or the quote unquote bad people in your life and love everybody equally. Well, it starts with the self, and it starts owning every single part of you. When we do not love somebody else, it's because we're looking at particular traits that they are showing up as, and we are judging them for those traits, and we are not owning that we have everything within us as well. And this is probably a longer conversation to have, so it's a bit of a difficult one to communicate with you guys right now, but yes, so ultimately it's because we put people in a pit, or we put people on a pedestal, like I spoke about a couple of days ago. That's when we do not have equality, and therefore we do not have love. So ultimately we do not have to condone poor behavior, but if you want to be a whole, rounded out, loving individual, then you need to be able to see past behavior, trust intent of that individual, because ultimately it's my belief that all of us, when we when we act poorly, when we show up poorly, when we treat others badly, it's because of our own fears within and our relationship, the quality of our relationship with ourselves. So when you recognize that, you can have compassion for others, and it's not at all to condone poor behavior, and it's not at all to loosen boundaries. You should still have your own boundaries about how you expect to be treated and so forth, and the people around you as a society. But at the end of the day, we need to have compassion for people if we want to get to that place where we have love for everyone. And you know, I'm not saying that I'm so totally enlightened and I'm operating there 100%, but I'm working on it. And I like to assume the best of people and trust intent, but still have boundaries. So it's about a combination of things, but I hope that that has been valuable. And Michael, apologies to elaborate on my previous comment. My novel, based on personal events, tie into the law of attraction that can supplement the powerful talks you share with followers. Okay, yeah, that sounds really interesting, Michael. How about reach out to me, send me a message, and we'll see what we can do and see if we can work together on something. I'd love that. Definitely. So guys, I feel like I've probably had this talk for a long time today. If you don't have any more questions, I will probably just wrap things up, but I really hope that this message today has in some way resonated with you. Potentially you're starting to identify and face those fears, and remember that you're not the only one with these fears, and often that's what keeps us stuck. We feel like we don't want to confront our fears, we don't want to communicate about our fears, we don't even want to work through them at all, because ultimately we think there's something defect about us, and we think we're the only ones struggling, and it keeps us isolated and alone. So once we can start to recognize that every single one of us has our own way of those fears, that those deepest fears of not being good enough and therefore not being lovable, showing up in all of these surface fears of rejection, overwhelm, stress, fear of success, fear of failure, whatever it is, we all have them, and we all have those different models of not being good enough. And I encourage you to recognize that, to own it, and start writing down and facing those fears. Follow them, because that when we confront our fears, we have power over them. You know, sometimes we bring up these fears and we think how ridiculous they are, but if you don't face them, they stay going on in your subconscious, and you know, they dictate your behavior, your actions, and they keep you held back. So I encourage you to have that courage to face your fears today. Ask yourself the question, what am I so fearful of? Particularly if you find yourself triggered, or you feel like you're holding yourself back and you're not feeling great within yourself, I challenge you to ask yourself that question. And also, if you want to jump on one of these 15-minute power sessions with me, I'd absolutely love to connect and help you break through your current biggest challenge and help you see a new, fresh perspective, so you can break through, you can start uncovering and living as who you really are. Start chasing after exactly what you really want, and build that courage and that confidence and that freedom. So I hope this message has been valuable to you guys. Thank you everybody who has joined me today. It's always such a pleasure to jump on here. Like I said, you guys are lighting up my day. It's become kind of, my favorite sort of thing that I'm doing at the moment. So I appreciate you all so much, and I'm sending you all of my love, light, and blessings. And any questions that you have, shoot them through to me either in a comment or in a message, and I will try and get through all of these questions on a Facebook Live moving forward. So again, so much love to you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, bye.